Okay,
There you
there
go.
we go.
Yep, there you go.
Well, welcome everybody to our 2024 Osprey monitoring program. I'm so glad you're all here. Some of you may have had this training session before, so it'll be a duplicate. But I'm glad that the new people, the new folks who are monitoring are here to check out exactly what we do and what we're trying to do. I'll explain it as we go along. Once I can get my okay. So this is our 15th year of monitoring ospreys in Connecticut. I'm sure you're all aware birds are piling back in right now. Almost all the birds are back on their old nests. The new birds are looking for new locations. And so I hope this is going to be a really good year. We had a great year last year. I'll explain exactly where we were and what we're doing. This year, I'm excited and very, very thankful for you guys to help us. We couldn't do this program without your volunteer efforts. This program would not exist without you guys. And we've got over 300 monitors to look at. Well, we've got about 900 nests in the state. Not all of those are active. 600, 700 nests are active. I'll get to those numbers in a minute. But the program goal tonight is I want to get you guys all familiarized with the program, what we're trying to do. I'll give you some tools with which to monitor your nests. And the main goal of this program is to document the breeding success of ospreys in Connecticut. So how do we do that? We do that by counting and tracking all the active nests. And our main goal is to find out how many young birds are fledging from all these active nests. That gives us the breeding potential and success of the ospreys in Connecticut. So the success is determined by several factors, as I mentioned: active nests, housekeeping activities, birds building their nests, adding material to their nests, and then laying eggs, incubating, and then the fledglings. Why don't I go the right way? So when we started this program, it was actually back in the 70s. The DEP was looking at the very few ospreys that were nesting in Connecticut back then because of they had been decimated by DDT, as well as a lot of other birds. And so they began monitoring the ospreys. And then when their chief biologist, Julie Victoria, who was looking at the osprey population in Connecticut, when she retired, they asked me to do it. And that was in 2014. So we took over the program from DEP. And we always ask ourselves, well, why ospreys? I've always been interested in ospreys since I first discovered them when I was a kid fishing with my dad. But these are iconic raptors of mostly the coastlines, and not just the Long Island Sound coastlines, but the coastlines up and down, but the river systems, our lakes, etc. They're large birds, are easy to identify, and they tend to nest in areas that are easy to spot. Some cases not so easy to spot if they're up on top of transmission towers, but in many cases they are, and they're just great birds to watch, and they're fascinating. They're also, because they feed exclusively on fish that they catch themselves, they don't, unlike gulls, they won't eat dead fish they find on the shore. They only feed on live fish that they catch themselves. They're very vulnerable to changes in habitat and food sources. So they're really a good litmus paper for water quality. So if we have good water quality, we'll have a diverse and abundant fish life. And that's been the case pretty much, especially in Long Island Sound, that has recovered quite a bit. So ospreys are really sort of ecosystem sentinels. They're sort of the litmus paper of our water quality. And so for a lot of reasons, ospreys are very important birds to keep an eye on and track their productivity. And from the early days, even John James Audubon characterized ospreys, as I just said, they're so unique that people cannot fail to find them interesting, and they're so easy to observe. They began to decline in the 50s and 60s because of DDT and DDE, which were organochlorine pesticides that we were using everywhere. Here's a picture of Hammonasset State Park where the state was spraying DDT on along the beach to kill mosquitoes. But the problem was, of course, DDT was used on farm fields, agricultural areas, rural areas, suburban areas, and when it rained, it washed into the river systems and was bioaccumulated in the fish. The ospreys would eat the fish; it would bioaccumulate in them, and basically, what it did is it interfered with their ability to produce calcium, and so ospreys and other raptors began laying eggs that had so little calcium in the shells that the shells would break, or sometimes they would even lay eggs without shells at all. So Rachel Carson is the one who really blew the whistle on the DDT back in the 1960s, early 60s, when she discovered that it was the DDT was causing the decline in many of our bird species. She was fought tooth and nail by the chemical companies, of course, but finally she prevailed, and DDT was banned in 72. But the ospreys still began to decline because of so much DDT in the environment. They finally became endangered in 76. At that time, there were only a handful of ospreys nesting at the mouth of the Connecticut River, and DEP began monitoring them in 1970. And then there was a large interest in putting up platforms for ospreys. Platforms are going up everywhere, but they never really began to recover until the late 70s and early 80s. And it wasn't until almost 1990 that they began to nest further west of the Connecticut River. And the Connecticut River is a prime area for ospreys because it's also a magnet for their main prey during the summertime, which is menhaden, which are a herring that congregate in huge schools in the Connecticut River because of the confluence of the fresh water and the salt water produces a phytoplankton that feeds the menhaden. They feed on plankton, and since the phytoplankton rises to the surface of the water in the daytime because of the sunlight, they become so very much available to ospreys to feed on them. So where you have large concentrations of menhaden, you'll have large concentrations of ospreys. And even now at the mouth of the Connecticut River, we've got over 70 osprey nests in about a 1.5 mile circumference on the Connecticut River. So it attracts them. As I mentioned, they feed primarily on fish. There's a few records in the literature where they've taken other prey than fish, but very, very rare. They almost always nest near bodies of open, shallow water. But sometimes if there's a lack of nesting habitat for them, they'll move further away. On utility poles, cell towers. I mean, they're nesting everywhere, channel markers, trees. We even have them nesting on the ground in a couple of places in Connecticut now, although the ground nesting birds almost never survive because of raccoons. On a couple of the Norwalk Islands, for instance, ospreys try to nest there on the ground every once in a while. So they're nesting everywhere, and we encourage you guys, if you haven't found a nest to monitor yet, we can guide you to one. Scott Krubosh is our osprey coordinator, and he's very good at locating the nests on our expandable map and hooking up people with nests. So if you haven't found a nest yet, let us know. So nesting begins near the end of March when the adult males come back, but they don't really get serious until mid-April, like now, and probably won't start laying eggs until the end of April, early May. For those of you who aren't all that familiar with ospreys, they're fairly large birds, 3 to 4 pounds, a 6-foot wingspan. Some people confuse them with bald eagles because they have a white head. However, the ospreys have that dark band through the eyes. And also they're mostly dark plumage on top and white underneath. Bald eagles are generally dark on top and underneath. Black decurved bill. One of the differences between adults and the juveniles is the adults have a yellow eye, the juveniles have an orange eye. However, that's a little hard to discern when you're 300 yards away looking through a pair of binoculars. In flight, the birds have a white breast. The speckled necks are generally females. Lots of times the males will have a clear white breast, although that is not all the time. That's not a key identification. It's a key identification feature, but it's not. Sometimes you'll see a male with a slightly speckled breast, and sometimes females don't have much of a speckled breast at all. But usually females will have a speckled breast, and the dark wrist patch when they're flying overhead is characteristic. So here's the male with his clear breast on the left, and the female with her necklace on the right. Generally, ospreys lay between 2 and 4 eggs. 3 is the normal. The male arrives first back at the nest in the spring. He'll start to rebuild the nest. The female comes back a few days later, and then the male and female will hunt together, and there'll be a lot of feeding between the male and the female, courtship feeding. And once the female starts laying eggs, she doesn't leave the nest usually for long periods. You'll see her incubating there. It takes about 50 to 55 days before the eggs hatch, before the young birds fledge. So it's usually about the end of August, early September is when the young birds will be fledging from the nest. And then they begin their fall migration, usually in October. Ospreys are uniquely set up for catching fish. They're remarkable birds. Their talons, for instance, are just absolute spectacular fish catchers. Not only do they have these long, decurved, very sharp talons, but the bottom of their feet are covered with what they call spicules, which are almost like Velcro. So when this fish hits the water and when this bird hits the water and grabs a fish, they very seldom get away if they hit them right. They also have the ability to adjust for refraction. So if you're looking down into the water, the surface of the water will cause the light to refract. So even though we're looking down at what looks like the fish is right below us, it's actually a little bit above us. The ospreys immediately can adjust for that right away for refraction. So when they hit the water, they're right on top of the fish. And unlike other fish-eating birds, like terns, for instance, that dive headfirst into the water, ospreys will dive feet first into the water with those amazing fish nets at the end of their legs. They're really incredible. As I mentioned, they nest anywhere in an elevated spot, usually near open bodies of water. They'll nest on different structures, navigation buoys. Here's one on the nesting above the high tide mark on some driftwood that is in place that doesn't move with the tides. On top of statues, navigation buoys everywhere they'll nest. The hard part is when we're trying to monitor ospreys that are nesting on towers. transmission towers that they're hard to see. But fortunately, I think almost most of our birds are nesting on platforms, human constructed platforms. And the platforms have been going up in Connecticut since the 1950s anyway. And various different groups have put up the platforms. The state has put up a lot of them. Private people have put up platforms. We've put up platforms. But over the years, the platforms don't last forever and they begin to disintegrate. And so there's active groups that are trying to repair platforms, putting up new platforms, et cetera. One of the issues we're facing is that the state has pretty much decided that the osprey population is fully recovered. And so they're not granting permits to put up platforms on salt marshes anymore because they say that it interferes with the multiple use concept of our salt marshes. In other words, if somebody puts up an osprey platform near a creek, fishermen or boaters can't use that section of the creek during the breeding season. So the state is not giving us permits to put up platforms on salt marshes. However, we can still put up platforms on private property and upland areas. And so platforms are going up. The hard part for us now is trying to maintain platforms that are falling down. And as the time goes by, more and more platforms need repair. So I don't have the capacity to repair platforms all over the state who've been put up by who knows who, but there are some helpful organizations. Mononkatuk Audubon in Brantford, for instance. Terry Shaw has a group of guys that will go out and help repair platforms and put up new platforms within their area. They're not going to go all the way up to Stonington to do it or down to Greenwich, but in the sort of central Long Island Sound, Connecticut side, they'll help. So now ospreys should be coming back on the nests. If you have your nest identified already, you're probably seeing your birds back. Right now, birds, if the females are back, the males are copulating with the birds, with the females, and as I said, they should start laying eggs in another couple of weeks. So if you're looking at a nest, it's you're not going to be able to see inside the nest, obviously. So you're going to be outside, maybe 300 feet away or so, looking at the nest. Generally, if the female is sitting on the nest like this for long periods of time, she's probably incubating. Young birds, or I shouldn't say young birds, but newly mated birds, when they first come to start to nest, they do a lot of housekeeping the first year. Male and female will choose a nest site. They'll build a nest, but they won't end up laying eggs the first year. They'll spend a lot of time building a nest, but they won't actually begin to be productive until the next year. So if you have a nest that you see there's a lot of activity on the nest, but by the end of May, you don't see a female incubating, squatting down on the nest like this one, they're probably, your pair was probably just housekeeping this year. Next year, they'll come back and hopefully begin to be productive. So if you're looking at your nest, you'll see the female incubating in this position. She'll get up off the nest once or twice a day to turn the eggs, get a little a wing stretch, but she'll come back and occasionally the male will incubate the eggs as well, but mostly the female. The eggs are cream colored with brown splotches. They're fairly good sized eggs. They're more or less camouflaged in the nest, but we do get some nest predation from crows, etc. If raccoons can get out to the nest, they'll climb up and get the eggs as well. But the adults are pretty good at defending their nest. So you have your nest and you've been watching it and you see the female has been incubating. You won't be able to tell how many eggs are in the nest, obviously, or how many young are in the nest until the young hatch and they get to be about 10 days old. So if you see the young birds poking their heads over the edge of the nest, that is the indication that these birds are about 10 days old, because before 10 days old, they'll just be sitting down in the bottom of the nest and not moving. However, you'll know the eggs have hatched because the female will be feeding them. And you'll see the female perched on the side of the nest or in the nest, plucking out pieces of fish and obviously feeding young birds that are down in the nest. But you won't know how many there are or how old they are until they start sticking their heads up at about 10 days. At about 20 days, they're fairly good sized. And this is what they are like at about 20 days. Now, unlike gallinaceous birds like chickens, ospreys incubate their eggs as they are laid. So they lay their eggs about 2 days apart. And so the young hatch about 2 days apart. So you have a series of different size young birds in the nest. So here we can see on the right, you can see there's probably the firstborn chick is the largest one. Then the second one on the right is 2 or 3 days after that, and then the smallest one is the one on the left. So the furthest one on the right. So unlike gallinaceous birds that they won't incubate their eggs till they're all laid, and then they all hatch at the same time. Ospreys and other birds as well, like ospreys, begin to incubate their eggs as they're laid one by one. Now, at about 40 days, the young birds are about ready to fledge. Now, you can tell these are young birds because you see the spotted wing covers here. The tops of the wings are spotted. That's the best way to identify the young birds in the nest. The adults will have chocolate back and chocolate wings. The young birds in the nest will have the spotted tops on the wings. Of course, they'll have orange eyes too, but you won't be able to see that at a distance. So just to give you some history on where we were, you can see that when we started here in 2014, we had about 100 stewards watching about 100 nests or so. And we lost some stewards in 2020. That was due to COVID, but now we've got more people watching more nests every year. So the number of nests we have with data, and these are nests that, these are basically all our nests, even though the ones that are not active, we still try to maintain data on them. In other words, somebody's out watching a nest and nothing happens on that nest, at least we know what's happened. So that we have data even on the unsuccessful nests. So you can see over the last since 2014, the osprey population has very much increased. Now here's our active nests, 210 in 2014 up to 688 last year. These are active nests. Now, not all active nests will fledge young, but these are nests where, some of the nests, they may have been abandoned, or they for another reason or others were unsuccessful, but 688 nests last year. And I assume that will continue to increase this year. Number of fledglings has increased as well. Again, 2020 was sort of an anomaly because of COVID. We lost some data there, but the number of fledglings has increased every year. So our goal is to document, of course, the breeding success of ospreys. How many active nests are producing how many fledged young? That's the key to the whole success here. We're interested in everything. So if you're out monitoring your nest, I'm interested in what the birds are doing, when they're feeding, how active they are, how many times you've seen them bringing fish to the nest. Are they mating? Is there any interference with other birds? Are they being harassed by gulls? I'm interested in everything that's going on in the nest, and I'm hoping that you'll be recording that on your data sheet. I'm hoping also that you will visit your nest at least once a week. It'd be better if you could do it more than once a week, and 15 minutes minimum, but 30 minutes or more would be better. The best time to visit your nest is in the morning, because that's when they're most active. Again, they are diurnal, so they're not active at night, and the young birds are particularly hungry first thing in the morning, so the adults are out hunting and feeding early in the morning. So morning is the best time to visit. Late afternoon is not a bad time either, but basically anytime you can get out to look at your nest, even multiple times a day, will give us a lot of information that we're looking forward to. The Osprey report form is on our website, and that it's a digital form that you can fill out. Once you email it in to us, send it in to us, it rolls into our spreadsheet. So that gives us an ongoing picture of what's going on with your nest. Some useful tools that you'll need are binoculars, or if you have a spotting scope, that's even better. If you're interested in spotting scopes, you can go on Amazon and find some fairly decent ones for between $100 and $200. If you're looking for a spotting scope, text me or email me, and I can give you some information on what are particularly good ones. You don't need to spend $3,000 on a Swarovski spotting scope. There's fairly good ones that are available for around $200. So you'll need your data sheets in the field, a clipboard, a pencil. Make sure you know where your map, where your nest is. If you're having trouble finding your nest, if you get a hold of Scott, our coordinator, he can help you zoom in on a nest. He'll also help you find your nest if you don't have one to monitor. We provide you with the website, the training guide. This training guide is also on our website, explaining why we're doing this, the guidelines, Osprey identification tips, and helpful things. So, as I said, we've identified over 943 nests last year. Not all of those were active. This year, we've got about 400 monitors so far. If you expand the map, you can see all the nests that that we know of. The nests will be pinned. Green pins indicate nests that have monitors. Red pins will indicate a nest that needs a monitor. So if you're looking for a nest to monitor, go to our map, look for red pins, and then we can set you up with a nest to monitor. So look for a nest near you, and the idea is to have fun. This is a great activity. It's one of the biggest monitoring programs we have in the state, citizen science projects we have. And without you guys, we can't do this. Here's what our map looks like, which is condensed, but this, I can't expand it on this PowerPoint program. But if you go to the site on our website, this map expands out to the individual nest. You'll be able to see almost the nest itself, if it's been monitored, who's been monitoring it, what the activity has been there in the past. And the red pins will be nests that need monitors. All our information is available on our website. We need you to sign up if you're going to become a steward. The guide is there. It's actually the guide for 2024, not 2021. The report form is there. So everything is there that you need to know. This is sort of a condensed version of what our form is like. So basically what we need to know is your name and address, your email, which nest you are monitoring. All the nests are numbered based on town. So you need to know what nest you're monitoring. If you are the assigned steward of the nest, we need to know that. If you're not the assigned steward of the nest, we still need your information. If you just happen to pass by and see some activity in the nest, we need to know what you've seen. The date, how much time you spent at the nest, number of adults, number of nestlings, the approximate age, if you can tell, of those nestlings. And most important, of course, is the number of confirmed fledglings. So we had a number of monitors last year who watched the nest religiously every week until about 2 weeks before the young birds fledged, and then they stopped monitoring. So I had all this information about the nest, but I never found out how many birds fledged from the nest, which is my key piece of information that I needed. So that's basically it in a nutshell. If you have questions, I think we can put you in the chat room, and I'll answer the questions at the end of the program. But I wanted to go over some of the other things about ospreys. Number one, some of the threats that we're having with ospreys. Because these birds bring back a lot of trash into their nests, everything from plastic bags to rope, fishing line, bottles, they bring a lot of junk into their nest. Some of the stuff is very dangerous to the birds, especially fishing line, and even kite string. Or one of the problems we're having is people who are releasing balloons for weddings and birthday parties. The balloons get into the water, the birds bring them back, and they get tangled up in the ribbons that are hanging from the balloons. So monofilament entanglements are really a problem. Although last year we only had, I think, 2 situations where it was a danger for the ospreys. What happens is they get tangled up with their feet. They try to fly from the nest. They end up hanging upside down under the nest. We do have some rehab people and help that will help get these ospreys if we can reach them. Christine's Critters is one. A place called Hope is another rehab area situation group that will help with the ospreys if we can get them out of the nest. And sometimes we get a lot of help from fire departments and other people to help rescue these ospreys that are tangled up. But it's really disheartening, when you're monitoring a nest and ospreys comes back flying back with these are ribbons from who knows what, balloons or something. But when they get tangled up, it can be deadly for these birds, especially the young birds who get tangled up and they can't move around and they end up dying or hanging upside down from the nest. So these are some of the threats that the ospreys have. However, we do have a group that is in the state as well, puts up these recycling bins for monofilament line that we have all over the state in popular areas where people are fishing. And hopefully we have a group of volunteers that are going around and emptying the monofilament from these containers. So we hope has been a help. We did notice a decline in entanglements last year. So hopefully that'll help. Anyway, that is the last of my slides. And I think if Deb has any questions.
Everybody was wondering about the slide deck. Is that just something they can get on the website, Miley, or is it something that might be sent to them in their email?
The what?
The slide deck, your presentation just now.
Yeah, this is it's our training manual. So if you go to our website, Osprey Nation, all the information you'll need will be there, including this manual, which is basically the same program that I just went over now.
Yep, and I put that link in the chat for everyone, so you can go to that page. There's also a 6-minute video there, just a quick overview. And we will also have this on our YouTube station, so you can review it if you want to. Another question that came in was about vests. I know we gave them away, or they were provided last year. Do you know any more information about
We
that?
do have a few vests available from last year. If you contact us, I
At the
think,
Osprey?
yeah, I think they're like $10 a piece or something.
Okay.
I think there are some if you need vests.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so
One thing I forgot to mention, at the bottom of this is, we have a Facebook page, Osprey Stewards of Connecticut Facebook page. And this is a page where, you can share information with other stewards, share pictures, questions that come up, by stewards who are maintaining multiple nest sites. It's a very good, Facebook page. So if you're in, personally, I don't have a Facebook, page myself, but this is a good one if you're interested. I forgot to mention that we have this Facebook page, so.
and that's the link is for that is also on that resource page that I put in the chat. So
Okay,
they should be able to get to it from there as well if they want to join.
all right, well, that was a lot of material in a short amount of time, but if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer questions.
There will be some people reaching out to you about scopes and binoculars.
Okay, good, yeah, okay,
I
great.
put your phone number and your email in the chat for them to reach out
Okay.
to you.
And also, once again, I don't want to, overemphasize this, but I can't overemphasize it. The fact that I can't thank you all enough for participating in this program. We would not have nowhere near the information we have on ospreys now about the productivity over the last 10 or 15 years without your volunteer help. So thank you all very, very much for this. And any questions, you can contact me personally or Scott Trubosh, who is our coordinator, and we'll help you get going if you have any difficulties.
Lori Shore has actually said that there's an osprey caught up in plastic right now at Hammonasset. Do you know if anybody has contacted them, Lori, or reached out for it? Just let me know in the chat.
Boy, that's that's an early disheartening
Yeah.
piece of information. They should be able to reach that Osprey platform. I think the Hammonasset platforms are reachable. So you don't need a boat to get there. So the state park personnel should be able to.
She said it just happened and he's flying right now. So
Oh, he's flying, but he's not entangled in the nest.
so she said that, yeah, she has plastic, but it's on him, I guess.
Okay, there's not much we can do if there's plastic tangled up in their feet, but they can still fly because we can't get the bird. So hopefully he'll be able to get it off his feet. The real problem is when it's tangled in the nest.
Yes, and they can't get up.
And then they can't get out of the nest. That's the problem.
Okay. Is there any more questions? If not, obviously, like Miley said, reach out to us at Osprey at ConnecticutAudubon.org for any questions. You can reach out to Miley and Scott. And thank you so much for all of your volunteering. And it's amazing.
And have a good time. That's the important thing, because you're actually adding to our scientific knowledge of these birds. So this is real science that you guys are doing, and it's very important. We couldn't do it without you. So thanks again so much. I appreciate it.
Miley, someone asked, who do they contact again to see if there's a problem with entanglement? You gave those resources, right?
Yeah, they're here. I'll come back. Christine's Critters and a place called Hope. These are rehabilitators who will, if you can rescue the bird, get some volunteers to get the bird out of the entanglement, you can bring them to these rehabilitators who will get them back in shape if possible.
Thanks for the question again, Paul. All right. Thank you so much, Miley.
Okay, thanks, Deb. I appreciate it.
All right, everyone have a great night.
We'll be in constant communication.
All right.
All right, thanks.